How's it going, everybody? In this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our next topic inside of the control policy section by focusing on the centralized policy. What we're going to first do is we're going to take VPN1 and we're going to convert it from CLI managed over to vManaged. So we're going to apply some templates to it and get it online so that we can take the vSmart templates that we applied to vSmart in a previous video, and when we go to create a centralized control policy, we can apply that, and VPN1 and VPN2 will both take advantage of that. We're also going to go through and I'm going to disable the default route propagation of the ASA to the rest of the network. So basically I'm going to kill the internet connection, and the reason I'm going to do that is because when we go through and set up the hub and spoke topology that we're going to be doing here in just a moment, we have to set that up, or else we won't be able to lock it down to just hub to spoke, spoke to hub. Because currently we have communication going back and forth between everything. So right now the way that the network is flowing is, if we look at this, currently we have communication like this, we have communication like this, we have communication like this, and like this, and like that. So because we have all this communication going back and forth, this is what they refer to as full mesh. This is how Cisco SD-WAN works out of the gate, which means it's full mesh means that it is going to be any to any all the time, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but it isn't always the best way to deploy your network, right? There are going to be times where a more specific topology is necessary in order for things to work. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to lock it down. So the default route that's getting advertised from ASA to switch 16, and switch 16 is propagating to VPN2 and VPN1. That actually is getting, well, once we move this from CLI mode to vManage, we'll actually propagate default routes from both VPN1 and VPN2 over both T-locks this way. So there will be a default route learned on all of these devices, right? And that, if we were to do that, that would actually break a specific hub to spoke and spoke to hub communication, which would actually allow spoke to spoke communication. So when we get done with demonstrating this spoke to spoke, or the hub and spoke topology, we'll go ahead and re-advertise the default route. And that will allow us to migrate from what would be known as Dmvpn Phase 1, or spoke to hub to spoke, where no spoke to spoke communication would be allowed. Then we'll go ahead and see what Dmvpn Phase 2 is. Because out of the gate, our full mesh is actually Dmvpn Phase 3. Again, any to any communication over the SD-WAN fabric. So that's what we're going to do. So when we get the first hub and spoke topology deployed, we're going to allow this communication, we'll allow this communication, and we'll allow this communication. But we will not allow anything spoke to spoke in any capacity like so. So any spoke to spoke communication will be denied. In order to allow that to happen, we can go ahead and re-advertise the default route from ASA. That will be learned via OSPF on VPN1 and 2, and then be propagated down to the V-edges, which will allow Dmvpn Phase 2. And that's going to be basically the direction we go with it. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this setup. So the very first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to go to the ASA. So pull this guy up, and I'm going to go to ASA1. And if we do a show run router OSPF, I'm going to go underneath here, and I'm going to simply type in no default information originate. So if I do that, I go to VPN1, for example, admin, and do a show IP route, we should no longer see a default route being propagated, which is what I want to see, right? So the only default route that I have currently is a static route. If we go to VPN3 and I log in, do a show IP route, we're not going to receive a default route over the OMP peering, which is what I want to see. The next thing that we're going to go do is on vManage, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the dashboard, and I'm going to go ahead and bring VPN1 on as a templatized device. So templates, and then from device template, we're going to click on the dual site device template. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say attach devices. I'm going to grab VPN1, add that, and click on attach. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and edit device template, and I've already done this to make sure that it would work. So I have a number of capabilities and options that are available to me, and I've just populated all the information already. So all this information is still populated, which is what I wanted to do. Everything is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and click on update, next, and then I'm going to push that config down to VPN1. I'll pause while it is in the process of pushing. Alright, so we can see that everything has been pushed the way we needed it to, which is good. So if we go back here to devices, we should see that VPN1 is now a mode in vManage, no longer CLI. Okay, great. The next thing that I need to go do is I need to go through and configure all of the things on the policies to get it squared away. So let's go ahead and knock that out. So the very first thing we're going to go do is click on the policies right here in configuration policies, and here we're brought to the centralized policy option, and we have localized policies. So if we're going to do localized policies, there's a couple sitting here. We will circle back to those at a later point in time. Centralized policy, here we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to click on add policy, and on the left hand side of your screen, and the very first option we have is the create groups of interest. So what is it that we're going to try to match on? So we're going to match on two different things. We're going to match on site, and we're going to match on VPN. The site is going to determine which sites are going to be affected, and then the VPN is going to determine which particular service VPN or VRF are we going to apply these rules to. So we're going to create a couple of different sites. We're going to create HQ, which is going to call site 12, which is going to include VPN1 and VPN2, and then we'll create branches, which is going to call sites 3 through 5. So basically, our HQ is going to be VPN1 and 2, and then the branches are going to be VPN3, 4, and 5. So we can call HQ and branches to apply basically to every device, and then I'm going to create a device, more sites that's going to be specific to an individual VEdge. So we'll create a VPN3, would be site 3, VPN4 would be site 4, so on and so forth. So if I want to get specific with a particular solution or option, I can do that. In the VPN, we're going to create one VPN because that's all we have right now. When we get into VPN segmentation in a later video, we'll take a look at how that comes into play. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the site, and right now I have no sites. I'm going to click on new site. I'm going to call this HQ, or let's call this hub. And then we're going to say site 12. So just do something like that. Click on add, and then I'm going to add a new site called spokes. And then I'm going to put in here 3 through 5 and click on add. So we have that. So the entry is going to be site 12 and sites 3 through 5. Then I'm going to add in here. I'm going to say we'll go HQ and we'll put in here 12. Actually, let me do it this way. We'll do VPN1 is going to be 12, and then add that, and then add a new one for VPN2 and 12. So yes, it is the same site, but we can call individual VEdges to apply a particular policy to. Then it's going to be VPN3, site 3. Add that, and then new site list will be VPN4, site 4. Make sure that's a capital E right there. Click on add, and last but certainly not least, VPN5, site 5. Okay, so now we have all of our sites added. So if I want to be creative in some way, I can do that, and it's going to give me a lot of flexibility down the road. Next thing I'm going to do is click on VPN, create a new VPN list, and right now we only have one. I'm going to call this service-VPN1 and just call 1 because that's all we have. Click on add, and there we go. So now I've created my two groups of interest. Next thing I'm going to go is click on next, and this is where we're actually going to create our control policy. So in this here, we're going to click on topology and choose hub and spoke. and then we need to give it a name. We're going to come in here and type in the hub and spoke topology. And the reason why I like to call it topology and not a policy is because they're technically two different things. So a policy is applied to enforce something. A topology, in my opinion, this is just my verbiage, is to what's going to be controlled. So I call it a topology only for the fact that it's going to dictate what's going to be going on. The policy gets applied. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and the VPN list is going to be service VPN. And the hub site, I'm going to simply call hub, click on add, and then the spokes, I'm simply going to call spokes, and then click on add. Simple as that. Now if I wanted to add more details here, I could. I don't have any prefixes configured, and I could advertise the hub TLOX. Not going to mess with that right now, but we will take a look at that later. I'm going to click on save hub and spoke policy, and that creates basically the policy for the topology. So we've got a topology created for that. We're going to go ahead and click on next. I'm not going to modify any traffic rules. I'm not doing any application-aware routing. I'm not going to influence traffic in any way, and I'm not going to deploy NetFlow. I'm going to click on next to apply the policies to sites and VPNs. I've already gone through and defined that. Now, if I was creating like a custom rule, then I would actually have to go in and define the sites and the VPNs. But again, that's a topic for another video. So what I'm going to go do in here is I'm going to come in and type in the hub and spoke and policy, something very simple like that. ICY, and copy and paste that there. There we go. And that's it. I'm going to go ahead and save policy. Now that I have it created, I need to go ahead and apply it. So I'm going to click over here on the three dots for more options and click on activate. Now it's going to get pushed to the available vSmarts that are here. So in this case here, it's going to be the only vSmart that we have. Click on activate. And what that's going to do is that's going to push the policy down to the vSmart. And then the vSmart will control the routing updates available to the vEdges. So now the vEdge 3 will lose all of its, let me go ahead and do a quick show IP route. There's a whole bunch of stuff that vEdge 3, it looks like it's already taking place. Because right now we've lost all of our connectivity to the other sites. So this should be, there we go, it's done. So now I have no access to anything at, say, branch 5 or vEdge 4 or anything like that. So that connectivity is now gone. So what I'm going to go do is on router 13, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to ping 10.5.6.69, which is going to be router 5's DHCP assigned address. Give that a couple seconds, and then the tunnel should come online. Let me see why. Oh, you know why? Show IP route. I don't have a default route. So let me go ahead and create one real quick. Let me go ahead and. So because of the fact that and you might be wondering, well, how come the default route's not there? Well, it's no longer there because I turned it off when I turned off the default information originate on the ASA, which retracted the default route propagation. So the vEdges site 3 for the single site locations, they're not actually taking advantage of the default information originate always for OSPF. So they're just simply propagating routes. They're not doing that right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get that guy squared away. So in this case, it'll be 10.3.13.3. So now with my default route in play, show IP route, I have a default route in play. I'm going to go ahead and do that ping one more time, and I should be able to reach it without any problems. There we go. So that means I can talk to the hub, and the hub can talk back to me. But if I tried to ping, say, 15.15.15.15, the ping is never going to go anywhere. It goes up to vEdge 3, and vEdge 3 goes, well, I'm sorry, bro, I don't know what to do. There's nothing here for me. So this will allow me to go through and have all kinds of connectivity from hub to spoke, but not spoke to spoke. Now, one thing that we could do is, and this is Dmvpn Phase 1, so spoke to hub and hub to spoke, but no spoke to spoke traffic at all. Okay. With that being said, I could go in here and start adding capabilities. For example, I could turn on localized NAT if I don't want to use the if I want to just take advantage of hub to spoke or data center to spoke communications, I could. Now, one thing that does not allow me to do is you'll notice that connectivity from the vManage site over here, so VH5 and iOS 14, I'm not receiving any of those routes either. We're not going to really get into preferential stuff yet. That'll be coming down the road. But if I wanted to enable local internet access on the V-edges, I could still do that. And I'll go ahead and basically show you what that would look like. But let me go and show you how it would work if we had connectivity set up to where I want to allow connectivity. I want to have all the traffic flow back to the HQ site, for example. So if I want to allow that to have, say, ASA1 be my internet provider for all of my branch sites, for example, I could totally do that. And on the ASA, it would be something as simple as doing this. I'm going to go in, I'm going to router OSPF1 and type in default originate, and now what should happen is VH3, if I do show IP route, I should have default routes now to 12 and to VH1 and VH2, which I do. So now what this also enables is Dmvpn Phase 2. So spoke to spoke traffic via the hub. So that means if I go back to iOS 13 and I hit the up arrow and I go, if I come to here to ping 15, 15, 15, 15, I'll be able to reach it. But if I do a trace route to it, I'm going to take a path via the hubs. So I'm going to route from 3 to up to VH1, and then I'm going to go back down towards VH4 and then eventually to to iOS 15. So Phase 2 does work, right? And that's what I'm basically doing here by enabling a default route, which now flips us from hub and spoke with just spoke to spoke communication, so Dmvpn Phase 1, by just advertising a default route from the hub site down to the spokes. I now enable Dmvpn Phase 2, but I am going to force traffic to go through the hub site. Now, this is not the same thing as service insertion, so don't think that's what this is. I could force traffic to go to the ASA, but right now I'm not doing that. I'll talk about service insertion at a later point in time, where I could take this next step forward, and I could create a, right now the way that it's working is if I go back to iOS 13, which I'm right there now, if I was to ping 1.2.3.4, I will be able to get there via ASA. So if I do is to do a telnet to 1.2.3.4 and then do a, go ahead and log in real quick and do a show users, you're going to see that I'm coming from the public IP of the ASA, right? Now that all makes sense. Now, because I have that in play, let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say if I want to have traffic go locally, right? And I want to lock it back down where I don't want to allow Phase 2 communications to happen at all. So I'm going to go back to the ASA. I'm going to hit the up arrow and type in no default information originate. Go back to VH3 and verify that that's taking effect. My default routes go away. But what I want to go do now is I want to allow local internet breakout. So I want my V-edges at the VH3 and VH4 to be able to reach the HQ site. Maybe there's some servers that they need to be able to reach or whatever the case might be, but I also want to allow local internet breakout. So let's go ahead and get that set up. So I'm going to go over here to the templates option, and I'm going to go underneath feature template, and I need to specify the single site location. So single site, come down here to VPN 0 on gig 00. I'm going to enable NAT on that interface. So I'm going to edit. Let that load up, click on NAT, and I'm going to click on, well, it's already turned on, so I don't have to worry about that. And so that I don't, now as long as NAT is enabled on gig 00, I'm in good shape. I'm going to take a step back to the feature templates, and I'm going to make sure that there is a default route So VPN1 for single site. I'm going to go ahead and edit that. And on IPv4 route, I'm going to go ahead and add an IPv4 route, just the default. And I'm going to type out VPN and then turn it on. So now we'll have a local internet breakout. I'm going to go ahead and click on add and click on update. And I'm going to go ahead and just push that out to both devices and get them squared away and running. I'll pause while that push is happening. Alright, so the push was done. So if we come back over here and hit the up arrow and do a show IP route, we should have a NAT rule in place, which we do. So now we go back to router 13 and I come up here and I ping 1.2.3.4. I can reach it. If I telnet to it, I go Rob and Cisco and do a show users. Now I should take the local internet connection out, and if I exit out and do a ping to 10.5.6.69, I can still ping over the OMP peering, so I still have connectivity over the SD-WAN fabric. But if I ping quad 8, or I'm sorry, if I ping the 15.15.15 address, it's not going to go anywhere because the internet connectivity, because it's the default route, it's going to catch all, saying if there's nothing more specific, go ahead and send it out to the internet, and the internet's going to be like, I don't know how to reach 15.15.15.15, so sorry for you. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you would do hub and spoke. If you add a default or propagate a default route from your ASA or your internet edge to your vEdges, and the vEdges have advertised internal routing over OMP, which they should, then you're going to have to propagate that route. We'll take a look at doing some modification to where we don't propagate the default route, but we still have it at the configuration at the HQ site still has internet connectivity, because right now the HQ site doesn't have any internet connectivity because I turned off the default route. I mean, I could configure a static default that points to switch 16 and do some static routing, but I mean, that's in this day and age, everything's dynamic. Nobody, unless you're like brand new to networking and static routing is all that you comprehend, most people go dynamic routing. We'll talk about how that comes into play in a later point in time. But for right now, where we are right now is the transition point. It's for playing around with some different capabilities and different options, because those are things that may come into play and you might need to be to play with and understand. So there's that. So until next time, guys, thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with me, and I'll catch all of you in the next video.